Major newspapers get a failing grade for diversity. Phil Lindemann on Krystal 93 News. First, Arbys is now the very first American fast food chain to sell deer and elk. Earlier this month, the chain started serving venison and elk sandwiches in 3 locations, including Montana, and lifelong hunters are crying foul. Colorado Public Radio reports that the Montana Wildlife Foundation sent a letter to Arbys this past week, asking the chain to stop selling the game meat sandwiches. One reason is hunting. The foundation doesn't want to reopen the doors for mass game hunting, saying it led to troubles with deer and elk populations in the early 1900s. In response, Arbys pointed to its supplier, New Zealand. The deer served at Arbys is from red deer raised on game farms in New Zealand. Officials also said their new sandwiches sold out the very first day. A request to allow 40 times the current amount of molybdenum in local rivers will update aging restrictions and not pollute local waters. This from officials with Climax Molybdenum. Operators at the mine south of Copper want to raise the limit of the element it could release into waters like 10 Mile Creek, and they think the newer, higher limit of 9,000 parts per billion reflects peer-reviewed science on its effects. They also say that they have no plans of releasing more or changing their operations. But Denver water officials disagree with the science. The water utility, which oversees Dillon Reservoir and drinking water for 1.4 million Colorado residents, says the studies aren't convincing. Among other things, they were conducted with rats. The State Department of Public Health and Environment is expected to rule on the request in December. In the age of online news tailored just to you, are traditional newspapers diverse enough to cover all the news that's fit to print? A new report from Google Trends says not exactly. The report looked at more than 600 newsrooms across the U.S., including major players like the Wall Street Journal and New York Times. On average, it found that newsrooms have more men than women and far more white reporters than minorities. The Washington Post is one of the most diverse major papers, with a staff split in half between men and women. USA Today is one of the worst for diversity, with a staff that's 38% female. In Colorado, geography makes all the difference. The Greeley Tribune is 90% white and yet serves a population that's 37% Hispanic. The Chronicle News in Trinidad is 100% white for a population that's more than 50% Hispanic, and the Vail Daily is 100% white for a population with just 7% minorities. The Vail staff is split almost evenly between men and women, while the Summit Daily did not respond to the survey. In sports, the Denver Broncos play heated rivals Kansas City tonight on Monday Night Football. Former Chiefs running back Jamal Charles makes his return to Kansas City, where he is the all-time leading rusher. Vegas has the Chiefs winning by a touchdown. Red Bull Rampage went down in Utah over the weekend, and Canada's Kurt Sorge became the first ever 3-time champ. Cam Zink took second. See the Krystal 93 Twitter for a link to the top 3 runs. In local sports, brought to you by Dillon Ridge Liquors, the Breckenridge Bolts were back in action this weekend for an away series against the Rampage in Denver. The Bolts won 2 of 3, including a come-from-behind win to open the series on Friday. The Bolts won that one 4-3, lost 2-4 on Saturday, and finished with a win 5-2 on Sunday. Keepers Douglas Wakeland and Declan Rooney combined for 106 saves in 2 games. The Bolts are back in Breckenridge starting on Friday. Phil Lindemann with Krystal 93 News.